Hello, let's talk about the different experience from both the USSR and the United States during World War II. First and foremost, it's important to understand that FDR and Churchill, so the United States and the United Kingdom, are going to issue the Atlantic Charter in 1941, agreeing to basically work together against the Nazis, whereas Stalin and Molotov, the leader of the foreign services in the USSR, are going to sign a pact with the Nazis in 1939, agreeing to not work against each other and split Poland. So they're going to be a differing of views right through there. The United States is going to enter the war in December of 1941, whereas the USSR is going to enter the war in June of 1941. The United States is going to send a total of 9 million soldiers compared to the 34 million soldiers by the USSR. There was no single country impacted as largely by World War II in terms of soldier death as the USSR. Now, one of the primary reasons behind that was simply because they had so many men, but also because of Stalin's Great Purge, where he went through before the war and just killed all his generals because he could not trust them. There was no real loss of factories or damage of oil reserves, with the exception of Pearl Harbor, the Philippines, Guam, and the Wake Island. For the United States, an estimated 25% of factories and resources from the USSR were destroyed. So there was a much larger impact of World War II on the USSR than there was on the United States. Total, there was about 400,000 military deaths and 30,000 civilian deaths, compared to 8.8 to 10 million military deaths for the Soviet Union and 10 to 12 million civilian deaths. So again, many more Soviets were killed as a result of World War II compared to Americans killed. The United States was successful in Midway, which was their first real major engagement, and then Operation Torch in North Africa. And the Soviets really didn't have any victories until 1942 at Stalingrad. The German army actually occupied a third of the Soviet Union between 1941 and 1943. So again, the Soviets are feeling that they've had a much larger negative consequence of World War II compared to what happened with the Americans. However, the Americans are going to spend $341 billion in 1945 compared to $192 billion by the Soviets. So the Americans are going to spend substantially more fighting in World War II than the Soviets will. And the United States is going to advocate for the establishment of an international peacekeeping body like the United Nations, and is going to support the idea of free elections. Remember, the United States wants to spread their idea of democracy. The Soviets instead are going to insist on friendly communist governments and a buffer zone between the Soviet Union and the Western allies, Western Europe. And this is because the Soviets realized that there is a clash coming, that the USSR and the West, primarily the United States and the United Kingdom, have a kind of natural set of differences, and that they need to find a way of protecting themselves. It's also important to understand that when the war first started, and the reason that Stalin initially signed that pact with the Nazis in 1939 was he saw the capitalist Nazis and the capitalist West fighting with one another. He thought that Hitler, in doing this and starting a war with Poland and France and the United Kingdom, was basically going to be signing his own death warrant, and that these two capitalist countries would fight it out, and that he could use that against them and help spread communism. So Stalin from the get-go is trying to figure out how can he use this conflict to spread his own beliefs, to spread communism around the world. So Stalin does not trust the United States at all, wants to establish a buffer zone and have communist governments in the East compared to the United States, which simply does not want that to happen. And this is going to lead to the breakdown of the Grand Alliance, the Grand Alliance being the United States, the United Kingdom, and the USSR. So what are some of the disagreements from World War II that are going to lead to the Cold War? Be able to think about that and understand some of these things happening and understand why this is going to be happening. We're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in the upcoming videos. But the Grand Alliance is going to break down. As already stated, this is an alliance between the United Kingdom, the United States, and the USSR, the three big EU countries. There's going to be disagreements over a number of different things. Number one, what do we do about Germany? The United Kingdom and the United States want to make a stronger Germany compared to the USSR. Russia, which has already been invaded by Germany twice in the last 20 years, they don't want a strong Germany at all. What do we do with Poland? And what do we do with Eastern Europe? How do we economically restructure Europe? And what do we do about nuclear weapons? Additionally, it's important to understand that Stalin, the leader of the USSR, had a completely different view, different idea on these three issues compared to Roosevelt and Truman in the United States and Churchill and Attlee in the UK. That is all for now. Questions, put them down below. Comments, let me know of any questions you might have. We'll see you later.